Welcome to Wise Up Governance and Boards podcast, brought to you by 3 Wise Owls Governance Consultants. Covering hot topics in governance, risk, latest regulatory changes, and issues keeping directors and executives awake at night. Here are your hosts, Ainslie Cunningham and Deb Anderson.
So welcome to another episode of Wise Up. Today we are joined by Marc Nuss, who is the Business Development Manager for Destiny Rescue, a not-for-profit organisation dedicated to rescuing children trapped in the sex trade. Welcome, Marc.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity that I can share about Destiny Rescue and what we do. I think we're one of the best kept secrets in Australia, so we've been doing this for 18 years, but yeah, thank you so much.
Tell us how you got involved with Destiny Rescue.
Yes, well, how I got involved is one of my best mates, as you can hear, I've got South African accent, so excuse that, but I've been living here for 20 years in Australia. And one of my best mates, one of the guys I met right from the beginning, and we're still best mates, is his name's Carl. And I found out from Destiny Rescue through him, and him and his wife were, in 2011, they were moving over to Thailand to go and work at one of our centers there. And my wife and I got involved by funding them to be part of the funding campaign to get them over there and look, and then giving them money as for the period they were staying there to help them so that they can do the work they were doing for Destiny Rescue. So I got involved from a giving point of view, from a funding point of view, and then kept on donating along the way. And then over a year and a bit ago, got a call from Destiny Rescue, and they said, "Do you want to do more?" And they knew that I
give it your all.
Yeah, I've journeyed with them for quite a long time already, and they said, "You want to do?" And it was I didn't even have to think twice. It was a split second. Yes, what can I do? And that's how I got involved. So now I'm full time with Destiny Rescue, and it's been a great journey for me. So I really love it.
And so, what's your role?
My role is to interact with our existing donor base, because we're 100% not for profit. We don't get any assistance from any government levels, although we help certain government departments internationally, and even have been involved with the Federal Police from Australia as well. But we don't get any assistance anywhere. But we're a Tier 1 registered not-for-profit with the Australian government, and so get our money through donations. So my role is to spread the news, get the word out there about what we do, and also to help people who want to maybe fundraise for us, and like getting onto podcasts and vodcasts, so forth, to spread the news and tell what we do. And then I've also had the privilege to go undercover with our permanent undercover teams in Cambodia and in Thailand, and to see firsthand and be part of it firsthand, to see what it takes to rescue those children out of these hellholes we find them in. And that was really, for me, it brought it really home what, I counted it as a total privilege to go with our permanent guys. We've got guys, permanent gentlemen, all over we're in 7 different countries, and mostly Southeast Asia. So we're in the Philippines, in Cambodia, Thailand, and the Dominican Republic. And then we've also got a few other undisclosed nations. Just purely for political sensitive reasons, we can't mention them on air. Sure. But what we usually do is we've got 2 types of rescue. I'm kind of just launching to explain part of my journey with this, and we've got what you call a soft rescue, and then also a hard rescue, which is what we do with the local federal police. So soft rescue is where we go in undercover into bars, karaoke bars, brothels, and in some real dingy places. And we're basically act like we're sex tourists, because sex tourism is a huge, huge thing. And the problem with is it's a Western created problem. Mm-hmm. So like Australian government last year in the Sydney Morning Herald, there was an article about that the government guesstimates, and this is only a guesstimate, that about 250,000 men travel to Thailand for sex tourism every year, just from Australia. Now you multiply that from all the different countries. People are from Germany, from England, from South Africa, from everywhere. So that's why we can go undercover, because like why when when I went undercover on my trips there to Cambodia and Thailand, is I look like the perpetrators. I look like them. So
you fit the stereotype.
yes, I fit the stereotype very well, and so that's how we can go into these places, and they wouldn't know us for a difference. And we've learned how to handle ourselves, that we don't stand out. The whole thing is you don't want to stand out, and then that way we can go in there, and then we start, looking for underage children who have been trafficked into it. And it's amazing how many is just there, right there in the open. And, my own experiences, when one of the first places we went into, I saw this one young girl, and I called her across and asked her to come sit with me. So for her, I just was another perpetrator, another John sitting there calling her over. But the thing that really hit me is there I was sitting with this girl, and I've got 4 children, and my 2 younger ones are 12 and 10 years old, and here I'm sitting next to a girl, and I've worked out her age was around the 13-year-old girl sitting next to me, so nearly the same age as my own daughter. I'm going, this is somebody's child sitting next to me, being forced to do something that she would have never dreamed to do. So yes, it really hits home, and so that's part of what drives me to want to get the word out so much, because I'll think always of that 13-year-old that I was sitting next to, and going, absolutely. The reason why we go undercover is because they don't have a way of putting their hand up and say help. The World Labour Organization guesstimates, and remember, this is all illegal activity, so they can only do guesstimates. They guesstimate about every 26 seconds a child is forced into sex trafficking. So as we're having this conversation, another child's been forced into it, and it depends how long we go on with this, but every 26 seconds.
And how are you finding with the travel restrictions at the moment? Is there a slowdown in this sort of?
Yes, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, thank goodness for that point of view, that a lot of perpetrators and Johns can't fly over and do this. But what it's done is driven it more underground. So it's actually what it's done for us is our undercover guys have had to really up their ante and work even hard, even with the restrictions they've got there, because what happens is these organizations just kind of go further underground, and our guys have already seen that some bars, it'll look like some of these brothels, it looks like they're closed, but they're actually open in the back, so all the lights are off on the front, but they're still operating at the back. And also what's really pushing further now is also online abuse is happening. And we've started getting into online abuse, infiltrating certain networks there, with the help of, we were talking earlier there, that there was a 2.5-year-old boy that we helped rescue, and it was a combined work through the British intelligence and the local Philippines anti-trafficking department. And us, and we were fortunate enough to set up a sting, and our guys interacted with them, and these guys, and like for example, this guy was basically he was a stepdad, and he was taking pornographic material of him abusing his stepchild, 2.5-year-old, and putting it on the dark web, and he was also organizing for pedophiles to come and fly over and abuse his child. And that's how we got into it. So we set it up, and with the help of the 2 different federal departments, and from England and from the Philippines. And we set it up, and fortunately, we took possession of the child and did the money changeover, and the man and his wife are now in jail, who organized it all. And that's just, I can tell you hundreds and hundreds of stories.
Yes,
but so unfortunately with COVID, getting back to that's what's happening. You're finding out that the online is increasing. And also what we really believe, and we're preparing for it, is there will be a flood of children once all of these restrictions are lifted. Because unfortunately what happens with all these restrictions, poverty is a lot of times the motivating factor behind it. So, and there's so many different ways that these children get caught. So a lot of people just think it's just parents that sell their kids, and that happens. But a lot of it is these children get duped, but the pressure is finance. So when you've got all these restrictions, it doesn't really help the impoverished groups in all of these different nations. And so And that's what we're realizing. There will be a flood of children forced into this once everything's opened up. So we've got to prepare for that as well.
Yeah, and then with the slowdown of tourism and
yes,
income
yeah, that's
stream,
right. That's right. It's got a huge knock-on effect, and we've seen even from last, when there was the financial crisis, around that period of time. That's also when these activities increased. After that, or the fallout of that was also more and more kids found themselves, unfortunately, in these vulnerable positions to be exploited.
And do you have, in terms of, I guess, rehabilitation type programs and sort of providing them an alternative income stream so that they're not engaging in this sort of activity?
Yes. So what we do is it's so multifaceted, the whole thing, and so. What we do is once we rescue the children, and they got there through different avenues. So some of them is purely, one of the major stories or main stories that's always repeated in different ways is you'll have a child and, she's 12 years old or 14 years old or whatever age they are, but still young. Their parents just battle looking after them, and they said, all right. So they feel the pressure to want to help their family. So they said, okay, I'll go to the big city and look for work. And, I'll give you one example. We had these two girls that they were in northern Thailand. And a lady actually came into the small rural town and just said, hey, I need two girls who are looking for work to come and work at a restaurant that I own. Do you want to come? Or who's looking for work? So these two friends, 15-year-old girls, put their hands up and said, yeah, we'll go. And didn't know where they were going, thought it was just kind of, just down the road, ended up traveling in the back of like a ute for 2 hours and find themselves at this bamboo hut in the middle of nowhere. And once they were in there, they were basically gang raped, forced. These two girls were virgins, had no idea, and basically were broken in. And then were from that moment sold for sex. And so a lot of times these kids think they're going for work, but then they get forced and railroaded into this. And that story is over and over and over in different versions, but that's basically the gist of what happens. But once we find them and we rescue them, and like we rescued these two girls, once we find them and rescue them, we take them to our rescue centers. And it's happened so many times because just think of this. The girls met us, our undercover guys, and initially we just looked like another dirty John that's walked in, right? So how desperate have you got to be that when we start showing them this is what we do, but they've been lied to so many times. We could just be another story that we're telling, another storyteller, and they could get themselves in a worse place. But just shows how desperate these girls can be, that they're willing to go with a complete stranger because we've got to get their permission. That they'll finally say, yes, okay, I do trust you certain element. And they go with us. So we book them out as we're going to abuse them in a hotel, and we disappear with them. And we take them to our rescue centers then. But the most amazing thing is to see those faces when we drive into our compound. And we always get the girls that are already there to come and greet them. And to see the relief in their faces that what we told was true and that they're now in a safe place. And so once they're there, what we find with a lot of these girls, they sleep for 2 days without stop because of what they've gone through and the trauma and everything. And then in our rescue centers is then when we give them a week to kind of settle down and, just you kind of get back to some form of normality. And then we start doing stuff like we'll do medical checkups. They get medically assessed because some of them have venereal disease. Because they've been raped and everything else. So we give them medical help, we give them psychological help, and we also take them then through, because they've been traumatized, through a trauma counselling process. And then we also start assessing them, where's the education levels. Like, for example, in Cambodia, we'll find that some of these girls don't even know how to read and write in Khmer. So we help them with that by obviously start teaching them how to read and write, because part of it, we've got to up their skill levels. Like, coming back to your question, sorry, it took a little...
No, that's okay.
And I keep on bumping the mic here, I apologize. But yeah, so we go and so we start assessing where they are with their schooling and then start helping them with their schooling. But then also we look at what what's the area, because we believe in the principle of give a man a fish, you feed them for one day, but teach them how to fish, you feed them for life, and they can look after themselves and their families. So we're not naive enough to think, just help them, patch them up and send them off. No, you've got to give them all the tools that they will not find themselves back in that position again. And that's why we've got such a high success rate of the girls never falling back into that or getting caught back into that type of industry. So what we do is then we'll assess them and see, like, for example, in Cambodia, we've got in-house, we've created a beauty, train them up to become beauticians. But when we say beauticians, there it is hairdressing, nails, and makeup. And so some girls will go for that. Last year, just in Cambodia alone, I think we had 24 girls graduate from that program. So, and then we set them up with when they go, if it's safe for them to go back to their own village and to be with their family, we actually will send them with product and gear as a startup kit to be able to start up their own little business there. Those that aren't safe, they can still. We look after them. If it's not safe to go back, they'll stay around where we are, and but we'll set them up there. But we've also got a lot of other businesses. While I was in Cambodia, there was an organization called Bloom Cafe, for example. They'll take the girls on who are interested to go in that direction. They'll train them up to become patisserie chefs, and they'll train on them for 2 years and then employ them afterwards as well. But also what they found there is that other restaurants, they've also been asking for these girls because they've been trained so well to come and work for them. And with our aftercare, I'll give you one story if you don't mind. I know I've been, but it's the aftercare is so important, because the rescue is one part, but what you do with them after is so vitally important for their future. And so that's why the essence of us, why we call Destiny Rescue. We rescue them to put them back where they can choose their own destiny. So it's not something that's forced upon them, but they can choose the life they want to live. And so one of the things we've got is I'll just it's not real names because we've got to protect the girls we work with, but I'll just say Rana. She was a girl that we rescued, and I won't say the nation just purely just to protect her as well, but Rana, we rescued her, and we were trying to work out, she didn't seem to nothing really fitted for which direction to take her. We helped her with reading and writing, but just didn't know where else to take her. And so then one of our workers there at our home saw that she was drawing a lot. And so, okay, well, and then looked at her drawings, and she was actually quite a good little artist. And so we paid for her to go into a local Japanese art school to get formal training, and then their country wanted to then she went through that program, and then after that program we found out that there was a new organization that was starting up that wanting to get into the animation business, movie animations and so forth. And she went in for an interview, and she got the interview, and now she's a digital animator. So what a change from being in a place of no hope, forced into something she would have never dreamed to be involved in. Her childhood stolen, but yet our agents came across her and rescued her out. And can I just add one thing for us, what makes us different from a lot of organizations, because you've got a lot of fabulous organizations that are there that, because it's such a huge problem, that are there helping these children that have been trafficked. But what makes us different from probably a lot of other organizations out there, and I use the analogy, is like when you've got the Surf Life Saving, you've got the overall arm that will that advertises and says, swim between the flags, watch out for rips, which are very all important. We need to hear those messages and be educated, and so that's an awesome part of that arm. But in the day when you're in the waves and you find yourself in trouble, you want a Surf Lifesaver right there in the waves with you, and that's us. We go into the dark places, the places that people wouldn't dream even exist, the dingy places, and you name it. We'll go in there and we'll look for these children. So we're in the waves with them, and when we see them, we'll find them and we'll rescue them.
So from a cultural perspective, it's probably quite difficult for some of the rescued children to integrate back into their families.
Yes, so in certain cultures, like some of the nations that I unfortunately can't mention, specifically one, it's a huge problem. With them, there we can't reintegrate them with their community because, like we had one case we had where the sister, so the mother died, the sister looked after the family, but the sister sold her niece when she was 13 to a brothel. And so we rescued her. But what happened is after we rescued her, her brother, who was in a different town, actually ended up putting a hit out on her because he saw it as bringing shame to their family. Right. What she got, she never chose to be in that, but she was forced in that. And that happens to so many times. So in that country specifically, we can't get them back to their family. And if their family was also totally innocent out of it, sometimes we'll help the family actually move out of the area. Right. Because you can't bring them back into the community. So yes, in certain communities, and we also really make sure we look after the girls. So if we reintegrate them in other countries with their families, because the World Health Organization says if you can reintegrate these girls with their families, if it's safe to do so, we'd go and determine if it's safe. We send our social workers and community workers will go out and look and do assessment if it's safe if it's safe, we'll get them back, but we never tell them where we found their child. We don't say your child was involved. That's up to the child if the child wants to divulge that. So we'll protect the child's identity and what they got, what they went through stays with us. So when we talk to the families, we'll just say she came across our path. We're just a benevolent organization, and we won't go give further details really of where we found her.
And does it take how long does it take to build the rapport and trust?
Well, sometimes it takes quite a long time to build a trust with some of these girls, because some of these girls are so damaged that even if you show them, because we'll quietly show them what we do and photos of who we rescued, but I mean, they're still taking a chance. I could just be another person that's telling a story. And so some of our undercover guys have had to, the longest we've had, which is very long, it was up to 2 years, but that's the minority. Usually it's 3 to 5 visits that we'll visit with them. That's usually where it sits. But we've had cases where, like, our guys went into just a little. It's called a bus stop, but it's basically a bunch. Buses do come around there, but it's basically just a whole bunch of bars and brothels, kind of in a U shape, kind of all around an oval type of form. And we went into one, and our guys walked into it, and it literally was just a dirt. Kind of a concrete floor. There were these little curtains along the way with beds behind it, and our guys that were there said they don't know how desperate you have to be to want to even lie in those beds, but that's where they would. So rightly, the guys would just take the girls and go and do whatever they wanted to do, and they were talking to these 2 girls there, and they felt at that moment that it's not safe for these girls to stay 1 second longer there. And so basically within 5 minutes, they broke their cover, told them what they're doing there. And these girls, so within they only met these guys for 5 minutes. They tell them what they're doing and said, do you want to go with us? The girls said, yes. They should just walk down this dirt road a little bit, but we'll wait for you there. The girls kind of snuck out, went there and went with them. No idea where they were going. Driving in the dark on the back of the bikes of our guys. No idea where they're going. But that just shows how bad it was for them there, that they would rather take a chance with a complete stranger, and that was within 5 minutes. And we've had cases like that.
Yeah. And in terms of, I guess, your tactical teams, do they have to have specialist training in terms of breaking through those language barriers? And
see, unfortunately, English is the abuser's language.
Right.
So all of these girls, whether it's even the smallest level of English, they still know a little bit of English because it's an international thing. You get people from America, from everywhere. Like we do work with the FBI and so forth, where they've got, all these countries have got pedophiles and guys flying on from all over the world, and English is the abuser's language, if I can put it that way. So there's communication that way. Our guys know a little bit of depends which country they're in, and one of our undisclosed nations, there's one where we don't, as Westerners, go, because they've got a form of temple prostitution, and so girls as young as 5 years old get forced into that. No choice. So all our guys that do the undercover work there are locals. So, yes. And with our guys do get training. We've got a sister organization that we put guys that want to go full-time undercover first got to go through training. In the beginning, we learned as we went, learned a lot of things, what not to do, what didn't work, but really, and then got some professional help in, and we still got updated training that our guys go through. And in the beginning, I spoke about the soft rescues, but we've also got other big part of our organization is what we call hard rescues. Hard rescues is where we work with the local federal police in the different countries. We've had some problems, unfortunately, with some of the local police, where they'll, when we're in the beginning days when we were trying to organize a raid, that's trying to raid and close down the whole place. So it's not just rescuing an individual out of there, but actually going in and closing the whole place down. Because we want to stop these, we want to just more than just rescue the tools. We want to stop the instruments that are causing them to get into that place. So with the raids, but in the beginning, police would organize a raid and somebody would have gone, like in one place where our guys were sitting, I won't mention the country, but sitting still undercover in the brothel, waiting for, just waiting. And next minute, the local police, head of police walks in with his medals and everything, walks in, talks to the owner, takes money, bribe, and walks out. And we knew it was compromised. But now with the federal police, all these countries, they've got actually specialist divisions that deal with this, and they'll sometimes fly in from a different part of the country, and so the local police wouldn't even know what's going on. Yeah. And so we've seen great success with that. So our part there is we'll go in, set up our guys will go undercover, we'll gather all the information, because we want to make sure everything is, all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, so that when it goes to court, that these guys can't wiggle their way out. So we set certain things in place. We've got evidence, everything set in place. And then on the day of the raid, our guys will go undercover as if they'll go to want to book the child out. And once money's been exchanged and the child's in their possession, the raid happens, they get closed down. And I was so fortunate that one of the places that I was an honor to be with our undercover guys got shut down in Paria. So, and it was right in the heart of one of the main districts. So, and with those raids, we find out a lot of times we might have interacted with 2 or 3 children that we found there, but once we've done the raid, you find there's 6, 7, 8 or more that we just didn't come across our path. And in one raid, we rescued 33 individuals. So it's so the raids are really it's one of the things we go. We'll always do the soft rescues, what we call soft rescues, when we go ourselves undercover. But we want to see these places shut down, and that's increasing. Like in the Philippines, we've really seen some major breakthroughs there. Like with everything happening now, unfortunately, with the coronavirus, people's finance is the thing that drives our rates, because rates cost for us roughly about $10,000 per raid, because there's so much of money that goes into building the case and preparing it and getting it ready and so forth. So we've got about 20 raids just waiting to happen. It's finances that's keeping them from getting there. And I'll use the Philippines, for example. The guys at one stage, they realized we were going to lose, some of these girls were going to be moved. And unfortunately, it was just at one of those moments when we were a bit stretched financially a bit, that the whole team in the Philippines decided they won't get paid. They'd rather put that money towards a rescue. So our guys believe it with all their hearts. They're all in with this. So for them to say, you know what, we'd rather skip getting paid, we'll work it out later, but we'd rather get this raid done. Every day I just sit in amazement that I can be part of such an amazing organization that's got such amazing people working for them.
And you get quite a few successful prosecutions?
Yes, we do. And that's why over time we've learned really how to do our jobs and do it well. And so there's sometimes when it's a bit more difficult is the auxiliary parties involved. When they try, and sometimes those parts take longer. Sometimes you'll have people that weren't directly involved in the child's handover and so forth. When you're trying to go down the lines, sometimes you find that somebody gets off on a technicality, but directly people involved, we've got a huge success rate with that. So, yes.
Do you have a lot of support from the local governments in these countries?
We have from that specific federal departments, but no financial support. But they need our help as well, because, like I said, a lot of this is a Western created problem. And so I had people saying, well, because we started out of Australia, like I said, 18 years ago. The founder, Tony Kerwin, was an electrician here in Sunshine Coast. So And him and a real good mate were the ones who started it off. But these countries do need our help. It's such a huge problem. And so, yes, we get help from the policing point of view and from sharing information and evidence, but no financial help, if that's more the question. But yeah, no, we've seen some real breakthroughs with the federal departments in all these different countries.
And do you think with the changes that have come about to modern slavery reporting, do you think they'll have a positive impact on your organisation? Or
I think not maybe specifically on our organisation, but more maybe on the effects, where people have got to realise where's the flow of money, who's being funded, where is it going. I think we've got to all be aware. This is a global problem. This is the second fastest illegal industry in the world. The second biggest, but the fastest growing illegal industry in the world. What you found is that a lot of these crime rings have worked out. If I'm a drug supplier, I've got to create the drugs in some dingy place somewhere. Then I've got to have this whole supply chain with different elements and get it to the client at the end of the day. But with this, they can take a child, have the child there, and that child will produce for them over and over and over, and the client's flight to them. They don't have to send the child anyway. So they worked it out very quickly that it's a way more lucrative business. And when people think trafficking and slavery, we always think of back in the 1800s when you had African people taken in chains on boats to England, to America, to everywhere. But if you think in monetary terms, in those days, it was a rich man's type of thing. It was, if we work it out today, a slave was about between $30,000 and $40,000 is what it cost you. But now in today's society, you can get a child for $90. So it's just opened up the market so big for these guys, and I never thought I would be in a society where there's no difference between a bottle of a beer for these guys, selling a bottle of beer or selling a human. And I'm sorry, but we've got to do something about it. And that's why I like to answer your questions, people have got to be aware of it. So it doesn't help us directly as an organization, but it brings awareness. And people have got to start thinking, okay, where's the flow of money going? Who are we funding? Who are we helping along the process? Have we looked down the line of actually where are these products coming from? Or where,
where's my paper
yeah, that's
from,
right. That's right.
Where's my call center based? And
that's exactly it. But for us as an organization, Westbank, there was some drama that came out in the media about their governance. And so they set up actually a specialist committee to help them. And we, once again, our CEO Fiona, got asked to be on the panel. So we're on the panel there. So for us as an organization, at least we know we're helping Australian organization to shine the light more on the problem we see every day.
So as a community, what can we do to help reduce
what we
demand?
can do? Yes, well, part of it is awareness, like what we're doing today. That's why thank you so much. Thank you so much that I can be here sharing what we're talking about.
Pleasure.
But yes, so it's awareness. People got to be aware, and like I spoke at and sometimes the awareness is right at your doorstep, right in your face. It's like I was speaking at a university and explaining about this, and the one lady came to me and said, I've got to have a serious chat to my uncle. He travels 4 or 5 times on holiday to one of these places that you talked about, and I have had my suspicions, and I'm going to just ask him straight out, because unless we start talking about this openly, the more hidden it is, the more prolific it grows. And so firstly is talk about it. Start sharing about it, and how people can help also, like I said before, the more money we have, the more we can go and do it. And so donations for us that's our lifeline. And to tell you that, when I told you in the beginning when we started this, when I was sitting next to this 13-year-old girl, basically the age of my own daughter, sitting there, and her story was 3 months before I met her. She was in school. She's got a 10-year-old sister. Parents, her dad suddenly dies, unfortunately. The mum starts struggling, so she decides to pull herself out of school and go look for work in the city so that her sister could stay in school. So she goes and she gets railroaded. Wrong people get their hands on her and force her into this. So here I'm sitting next to this girl. And I'm realizing I couldn't have even sat there if it wasn't for me. Part of the heroes for me are people, normal mums and dads who are willing to put their hand in their pocket and say, you know what, I want to be part of this journey and donate money to us. And I could have not sat there next to her if it wasn't for people that donated and placed that so that I could be there. And so donations is our big thing. We've got a thing called a Rescue Partner where people can give on a monthly basis. That helps us with our cash flow, looking at about $48 a month, but that's Rescue Partners. But then there's also, we've got people also that say, you know what, how much does it cost to do one soft rescue? And that's $1,500 roughly. You know, we've had to work out numbers, sometimes higher, but it's around $1,500. And so we've had people say, you know what, I want to give money to be able to effect a rescue. And then also we've been speaking to organizations and individuals. We've got, like I said, we've got those 20 raids that we need to do. So if there's people or even groups that can come together and say, you know what, we're going to start a little GoFundMe or a Razorly site, and between our friends, we've got people that just talked about this week that they want to get together and raise enough money for a raid. Because a raid, they can not only rescue quite a lot more girls, but they can actually shut it down and send the perpetrators to jail. So those are the different ways. And you can go onto our website, which is destinyrescue.org.au, and you'll see there's a donate button there. And also talk about it. Share on your post. You know, I'll gladly, you know, and like I said before, I'll talk to anybody, whether it's one person or 100 people. I'll talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the more we share on our social media about it, the more it comes out into the open.
Absolutely.
When you shine the light on something, it comes to the open. More and more, there's consequences for those that do it, but also more and more people get aware of it. The more people start rising up and say, no, we shouldn't have this in our generation.
But you would find, even like myself, I've been to Thailand and Bali and all those sorts of places, and you do see it. But I think you probably sort of become naive to it and think, oh, well, it must be just normal for this country, and not really know a way of being able to stop it.
That's right. And a lot of times people just don't know. That's the thing. People don't know. They'll go into, because you'll have some of these, that's nearly like tourist attractions. Like you've got Walking Street and a few others, like in Pattaya. And you'll have tourists walk through it, which it's like a tourist, because you've got all these girls and ladyboys and everybody standing out there outside of the bars, and so it's nearly like a tourist attraction. But what they don't realize is yes, there's certain people that's choices they've made that they want to do that, is, you know, but a child never dreams to do that. A child doesn't have that choice. No. A child shouldn't be put in that position. And the thing is, a lot of people wouldn't even know, because they tell the children to lie. Because they don't, it's a game. It's just one big fat game. So I've gone into quite a lot of these bars and different things, and you just see it, because we look at the girls, we look at their eyes, we look at them, and they ask to, in some of these places, nothing left in the imagination. They're made to dance on these little platforms and different things, and you go in there and you see this, and then you'll see a customer talking to them, they're all smiles, but as soon as the customer walks away or they turn their head, you can see the real expression on their face, that they don't want to be there. But they're forced to do that. And these bars, and I had one conversation with a bar owner, and he didn't know who I was, and he was bragging about, oh, this is putting money in their hands, and he didn't know I know the system. The system is that every girl has got to sell X amount of drinks every night, as in have customers buy them drinks. If they don't sell those drinks, the whole amount becomes a debt against them. So, and then they've also got to sleep with X amount of customers, that the bar also charges a bar fine to book them out, which is 100% the bars, but then the girl gets the money that she gets, piddly amount that she gets in the hotel room, but part of that goes back to the bar owners as well. So so not only are some of these women forced into it, but then they kept in debt bondage, and it's to keep them there longer and more. But the unfortunate thing, according to the World Labour Organization, I think they guesstimate is about 7 years as their life expectancy of children in sex trafficking, because of different things because they're very vulnerable and different things happening to them. And
is drug addiction an issue for them too?
Yes, because what happens, thanks for asking that, that's a very good question. A lot of these girls, they get broken in, and part of to keep them compliant, they'll give them drugs. So they get addicted on that, and they also get them addicted on alcohol. like they'll force them to drink the whole time to keep them on a certain level of intoxication so that they stay compliant. And they also force them through fear, through saying that they'll do harm to their family, to them. So there's different ways. They might not be in physical chains, but they're in emotional, psychological chains. So yes, drug addiction, and that's part of our health assessment, is to see in what level these girls are.
Presumably their housing conditions are...
Yes, it's not good at all, because and depends. In certain places you get where they've got zero movement, they can't go out or anything, and they stay in those places the whole time. Others, they get some form of movement, but they've always got to come back, but like I said, they've got other ways of controlling them. So and unfortunately in some places we rescued 2 girls, and it was just, we basically just stopped in the middle of nowhere, thought we'll check this place out, we'll go there. And although they could kind of move around, they couldn't escape it because the local police owned that business. So they had nowhere to go until we came and we rescued them out of it.
And so with your rehabilitation program, have you found that any of the girls have suffered long-term emotional damage as a result of this, or are you finding success in your sort of mental health program?
No, we find the program we've got, because we'll do even art therapy and a whole bunch of stuff, and we journey with them. It's amazing how resilient these girls are. I've used the word euro a few times for people that are willing to give money and so forth, but these girls are also, the fact that they're willing to break these emotional shackles off, we give them the tools to do it, but that they're willing to say, no, you know what, I'm gonna go after my destiny. I'm going to go after my life. So we've got a big success rate with it. Yes, there's some girls that will take longer than others. Everybody is a unique individual. So we've just got to work with the individual and work it through.
I love that you're providing a community too that supports them.
Yes.
They've all been through it, and they're all there to support each other.
That's right. And we find that even some of the girls that just can't move back it's not safe to go back to their families or their villages, they'll actually find accommodations after they've gone through our program. They'll actually go together and find a unit and still could stay connected with the community and go out and find jobs and so forth. So, yes, no, we're very proud of what we've done, but there's so much more still to do. There's other countries we want to launch into that, because in certain countries we've been rescuing girls that have been trafficked from other country into that country. Like in Cambodia, there's girls that have been trafficked from neighboring countries. So we'd like to expand in there. We've got one of our works that's undisclosed at the moment, is actually total preventative. We found we were risking so many of children that have been trafficked from that country into another one, that we actually set up we were with the Border Patrol. So we'll actually work with the border police in this country and in certain hotspots where they cross the border, and we'll actually do interviews and assess, and we actually prevent children from being trafficked across the border.
So do you find, though, that in that instance they then, I guess, resort to moving underground or moving to another place, or does it really actually ever stop them?
No, it does, because firstly, people get caught, and I know it's a huge problem, like we said, every 26 seconds, but you've got to start somewhere. You know, the old saying, how do you, I know I've never ate an elephant, but how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. I don't know who thought of that one. But so it's for us as one child at a time. And you can sometimes look at the problem and go, this is so big. But yes, but for that child, it was 100% difference. So for that child, they are not in that hell anymore, and they can choose their own destiny. And that's how we look at it.
You can't save everybody, can you?
But we try our hardest to. We try our hardest to. And that's the most difficult thing for us, is we've had times when we were trying to get a raid done, and just because of, you know, cash flow and different things, waiting, and you know, we've had unfortunate stories like when we got there, we rescued some of the girls, but one girl got murdered the day before. So we were one day short, and that's what, you know, that's what drives me. It's if we were in a position, if we were just one day earlier, we would have been able to save her. And so yes, no, we won't stop, and And for us, it is important that we're there, and every child deserves that opportunity. Like our head of the Philippines, the one story that sits with him, he rescued this girl, and she was just elated to be rescued, out of the position she was. But then with her big smile, and then she turned around and looked sternly at him and just kind of scolded him. She said, "Where were you? Where were you 4 months ago when I got forced into this?" She said, "I was crying every night, calling out for help. Where were you?" And that's what drives us. We want to be there, to be able to be the ones that take them out of that as soon as possible.
You're doing such an amazing job. And I mean, for us, like you've mentioned a few things of how people can get involved and help, and you've sort of mentioned the website and donations. Do you guys hold any fundraiser events or things like that we can be a part of? Or
Yes. No, we look at different fundraising events. Unfortunately, with COVID, that's put everything to stop. I had a few things lined up that I had to just put a pin in it, and once that lifts, yes, we'll have fundraising events in different forms and ways that people can get involved with, definitely. So, I'll let you know once we get these restrictions lifted and we can start gathering in more than just a couple of people. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, happy to give you any help that we can.
No, thank you so much. And once again, thank you so much for the opportunity that I could come and share our story. And like I said, I can talk for hours on this because there's so much that we're actually involved with. But yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
Appreciate
Marc.
it.
It's been amazing to hear about the wonderful work that Destiny Rescue and your team are doing.
No, thank you so much.
That's all for today. Until next time, happy podcasting. And remember, if you're enjoying the show, check out our other episodes and all things governance at www.3wiseowls.com.au.